Uh,
Hi, good evening and welcome to the March 3rd special meeting of the Board of Estimate and Taxation, the first of several meetings related to budget deliberate or budget reviews. Before we begin, or as we begin, Madam Clerk, may I get you to call a roll, please?
Yes, sir. Good evening, everyone. Mayor Smith,
Here.
Mr. Abrams,
Here?
Mr. Androsco,
Here.
Mr. Constant,
Here.
Mr. Jelleret,
Here.
Mr. Kasimis,
Here.
Ms. Yang.
Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Thank you. A few housekeeping things before we begin this evening. Number one, for anyone from the public who happens to be listening in on these budget discussions, there is no public commentary during these meetings. There will be later in the month a public hearing at which point you can express your points of view and provide other commentary. But during these meetings this week and next, there is no public comment, just so we are clear there. In terms of tonight's meeting, we're going to start with some opening remarks from the mayor in just a moment, then a brief presentation by Jared, then I have a few remarks, then we will move into the departmental budget reviews. So with that said, Madam Mayor, I will turn it to you for opening remarks.
Thank you so much, Mr. Abrams. Good evening to everyone, and thank you to all the members of the Board of Estimate and Taxation for the time, diligence, and seriousness you bring to this process. Over the next several days, as you have already mentioned, Ed, we will meet with each department and go line by line through the proposed budget. I know that work is not easy, and it does require tough questions, careful analysis, and thoughtful judgment. I also recognize for all of us that these initial numbers feel striking. It is not the budget that any of us had hoped for. I respect and I welcome our responsibility to scrutinize every item and identify savings everywhere possible. That oversight is essential. At the same time, I do want to underscore something equally important is that we want to make sure to invest strategically in order to move Norwalk forward. Some of the major budget drivers, and I'll just touch upon them because this is what Jared is really going to dig into for us tonight, that are driving this budget. Three things that we cannot control. One is the healthcare costs. They've gone up significantly, and at the same time, we also need to think about that internal services fund and how to fund that. Making the investment now will help position us for greater financial stability and predictability in the years ahead, plus ensure our fund balance stays healthy. It is a part of the fund balance, so we want to remember that. Two is the collective bargaining agreements. There were 6 unions that we negotiated with all at once last year. Moving forward, what we're doing is spreading those negotiations out so they will not hit us all at the same time like they did last year, and we can plan better for those contracts financially. And then, of course, the revaluation phase in. We are in year 3 of that phase in and looking ahead to the next revaluation, where we do believe prices will be more reflective of a normalized market. We're also focusing on growing the grand list, which we have already seen an increase in to help offset taxes for our residents. As my office reviews the efficiency study, we will be prioritizing investments that set our city up for long-term success. Sometimes responsible leadership does mean recognizing that thoughtful investment today creates savings and opportunity tomorrow. So let's work together to find efficiencies, ask the hard questions, and look for savings. But I also ask that we remain open-minded, not just about where we can reduce costs, but where we can invest to build the future we want for Norwalk. So thank you all for your partnership in working together on this budget. And I know Jared is ready with a presentation.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Jared.
Thanks, Chairman, and thank you, Madam Mayor. I do have a brief presentation. Actually, I just emailed it to you, but I'm going to also share it on the screen. So just give me 1 second. Everybody see that okay?
Yes, sir.
I sent a few of these documents to the city council, and I spoke briefly to them during my budget presentation to you all. And but then there weren't really numbers associated with to the item, so I think it's important to see those numbers. And effectively what the presentation is that uh, I want to talk to you about the budget drivers that are in the budget and point to some of the items in here in particular that are desperately needed for a number of reasons. And so start out with this pie chart. This shows about a dozen different accounts within the budget. And these are the largest increases that are in this that are in the budget proposal. We talked about a lot of this. We talked about the healthcare increases that everybody's experiencing, as well as the need to start to rebuild the internal service fund. And so there's a good portion of this, including employee healthcare, workers' comp, and the two LAP accounts that are related to the internal service fund. So this kind of gives you an idea of the distribution of these large increases throughout the budget. And then I'll go on to the next page, which is the same items with the dollar amounts and puts it into perspective and then into the context of the overall budget. The first item, the wages and salaries. I'm not going to hit on all these in a lot of detail, but I do want to touch on a few of them. The wages and salaries, 2.9, let's call it $3 million, round up to $3 million. So that's a net number. As I talked about during the first presentation, one of the ways that we were controlling costs this year was to do a lapse in salaries. And that lapse was equal to $3 million. And so the actual total increase that was in this budget was $6 million in wages and salaries, but we're mitigating half of that by doing this lapse. And so the idea would be that throughout the year, that departments would have turnover and maybe slow down the refills of positions, and that there would be savings in that way. The next 5 accounts are all part of the internal service fund. I can't stress it enough. This funding is critical. We heard it during the joint meeting with our municipal financial advisor, Bill Lindsay, last week, or the week before. And one of the things that he pointed out, which is really important, is that the internal service fund is effectively, for purposes of the rating agencies analyzing our financial information, it's effectively part of the fund balance. And so if there's a deficit in the internal service fund, it's going to be combined with and will compound the effect of whatever's going on in the fund balance as well. So if there's, for example, we are at the end of last year, we were in a negative net position of $2 million in the internal service fund. That's going to show up into the rating agencies as a negative to our budget overall. And so this funding is important to rebuild that to get us back to a positive position, um, and and also to fund the natural increases that we see, especially in healthcare. That service increase, as you know, and as I've talked about, we're continuing to use some debt premium to help control those costs and do it in a phased approach. And then there are some smaller items there. But the main point about this page, if you go all the way to the bottom, these 12 or so items here represent almost the entire all the increases within the budget proposal. And in particular, if you add together the employee health and those internal service fund items, they're approximately $14 million. They're more than $14 million. All the rest of the budget, outside of salaries and these items above, we get other increases total $553,000 or 0.2% of the budget. Just kind of next slide is really just a crosswalk of what the city council approved. As you know, by charter, they really only approve a single total amount increase, which got to get pushed the mayor's budget from 7.04% up to 7.54%, increase of $34 million. To go along with that, the city council recommended, this is not binding, but it's recommended that the BOE appropriation be increased from 4% to 4.91%. Yeah, city side stayed the same. Okay, so what does this mean for the taxpayers? There have been a few people that asked for, and I think it's appropriate to put this in the context of what happened when the phase-in began. So you can recall back to the spring of 2024. I know everybody wanted to see this was just before I arrived. The other boards wanted to see what the impact was going to be and how that phase-in was going to play out over the 4-year period of the phase-in. And so what this page shows is at the top, the table at the top shows the impact on taxpayers related to the budget that or the cap that came through the city council. And so, and the line that I'm focusing on here is the FY27 recommended median tax bill. So that's going to be the comparison in the end here. The second table, so the first one is the city council. That's their proposal. Second one is the FY27 projection from the spring of 2024. So when that projection was done, what was the recommended median tax bill at that time, assuming certain increases at the time? It was a 3% increase. 3% budget increase was the assumption. And so we can compare those two. We compare the recommended median tax bill with each of the tables here, and you'll see at the bottom what the effect is. And the way to read this is that the city council proposal is greater than the projected FY27 spring of 2024 projection by these amounts. So in District 1 is $498 more, or 6.24%. District 2, 490, 6.24%. So you get the idea there. So, I think it was important to show this comparison to everybody. Because it's, while the increases, no way to sugarcoat it. The increases in this budget are the proposed budget are big, but um, you know, there was always an expectation that there were going to be large increases um, in the media tax bill, and yes, they are bigger, and you can see the extent to which they are. That's the end of my presentation, my brief presentation. Uh, Appreciate you giving me the time to go through this information. And again, I just want to reiterate these larger increases, in particular in the internal service fund, are vitally important to this budget, and our to our uh, to our rating, our bond rating, because they do fall within, the rating agencies do consider them as part of the fund balance in that sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Jared. Any questions for Jared? All right. Before we move into the departmental budget reviews, I have a few remarks that I need to and want to make. First, on behalf of all of the BET, we want to thank the department heads and their teams for all the hard work they've done to prepare for these budget reviews. We're well aware of the energy and effort that this requires to pull together, and we thank you for all of that effort. That said, I need to be very clear that the majority of the BET is very uncomfortable with the recommended budget and the caps set by the City Council. Please understand, it's not because we do not see the need for the services that are intended to be provided. Rather, our issue and concern is with the heavy burden that this budget puts upon the taxpayers of Norwalk. Asking taxpayers to absorb tax increases in the range of 11 to almost 18% on top of the increases they've absorbed over the last 2 years and will be required to absorb next year in the final year of the phase-in is something that we really should avoid. We're well aware that statements like this will cause concern among various constituents who will advocate for investments in our schools and other areas that offer service and support to our community. But we also have a responsibility to the silent majority of taxpayers who do not speak up, not because they don't want to be heard, but because they believe their voices will not be heard. It's for that reason, as we go through the various departmental budget reviews, we as a BET are asking that all city-side departments prepare an alternate budget scenario that reduces their planned spend by 10% and lays out the impact and risks associated with these potential reductions. Additionally, as the mayor said in her opening remarks, we ask her and the CFO to aggressively look at additional options for saving through the many items that were called out in the efficiency study by the city. We want to use all of these data points, all of this information, as well as our discussions during these reviews and our public hearing to make the final decisions related to an effective and manageable budget that delivers the critical services that our community needs, while also trying to make tax increases manageable for the entire city of Norwalk. This is not easy for any of us, and it will cause frustration among many, but it's the work that we have been tasked as a BET to do on behalf of the city. So please understand that as we push, as we challenge, as we work through this process together. With that, I think we've had enough opening remarks. Tom, let's get into the budget reviews.
All right, tonight on the agenda is what we call general government, which encompasses mayor, chief of staff, corporation council, et cetera, et cetera. And then we will also cover the fire department and the police department. So without further ado, I will share my screen and walk you through the column headers and the assessments. Let me know when you can see that, and if I need to blow it up, and if history is any
Yeah.
barometer, I probably do.
If you could make it a little larger, that would be helpful, please.
Yeah. That's 2 steps. How does that look now?
That works. Thank you. That fills the screen well.
All right, so just to walk you through the column headers as we go across. So you can see over here, it tells you what division it is in the department, the account number, the brief description of the account. And we've got some actuals here for 24 and 25 for a little bit of history. Here's your fiscal 26 approved, your fiscal 26 revised, and then where are we now? As of February 26, the actuals so far this year, the encumbrances. So as I like to explain, think of checks that have been written but not cashed. In this case, in the municipal world, those are open purchase orders in most cases. And then how much money remains for the balance of the year. Fiscal 27 request, what the departments came in with, the fiscal 27 request versus the revised budget from last year. So in this particular instance, the increase was $5,000 in the salary. And in the cases of the salary counts, that's mostly we actually do the calculations, we being the budget team, based on the salary steps and then negotiated contract increases, and then the percentage increased. And again, those are the departmental requests. And then on the far right-hand side is where we are now, the CFO/mayor adjustments. And again, the difference, the CFO, the recommendations where we are now versus the revised budget from 26 and the percentage. So in this case, if we go down to the total for the mayor's department, what we're looking at is a total of $196,000 request. That is just under $7,000 above where they were for the revised budget in 2026, or a 3.5% increase. You can see most of that increase is in the salary line, which is to be expected based on cost of living increases in the salary line. Everything else remains relatively flat. One thing to comment on, we'll see time and again over the course of our discussions, is this salary adjustment line. If you'll recall from our discussions last year, what we did is we tried to account for basically not having positions full or having vacancies throughout the course of the year. In the case of the mayor's office, we rarely have a vacancy. But what we did across the board in the departments is we took a 10% haircut against all of the salary lines. So rather than go through line by line, say, for example, office supplies or business expense or seminar and conference fees and take a small portion of each of those and whittle it away, we just did a 10% adjustment or lapse, if you will, against the salaries to basically challenge every department to come in under budget. So in this case, with the mayor's office, the budget was $179,000 for 2026, and the salary adjustment was 10% of that, or just under $1,800. So really not a whole lot to discuss here. The salary is the only increase for that department.
Tom, is Troy, real quick. The first line, you have the actual of. You said the revised budget was 178, but the actual is 200. How? What am I missing something there? Why is it higher than the budget?
That would be the severance payment for the previous mayor. So Mayor Rilling was here for quite some time. So he was entitled to a payout for his unused sick and vacation time like any other individual. So our plan for that is within the mayor's office. And when we say the mayor's office, we consider that also to be the chief of staff, which we'll cover later on this evening in our discussion. So that's communications, city clerk, legislative, et cetera, et cetera. We do have some other salary accounts where there were vacancies. So later on in the year, when we have all of the administrative changes, severance payouts, we'll come to you with all of those payouts and have transfers to cover those where needed. I don't think we'll have to come to contingency for any of those requests, but think about one of the positions that's been vacant for most of the year was the webmaster in the communications area. So we have some extra funding there. And then in the area that used to or was formerly called diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is now called strategy and policy, which you can see is next on the spreadsheet. That position was vacant for most of the year, is now staffed. So there is some excess salary funding available there. So through a series of transfers, we should be able to cover the severance payments where needed before the end of the year.
Yeah, Tom, you keep using the word severance. Why severance? I think of somebody who was laid off or something. Am I
Well,
misunderstanding that?
uh, what do you want to call it? A departure? Sharon Torres will be on at some point. It, they're entitled when somebody when an employee leaves, whether it's a retirement or whatever, unused vacation, unused sick.
Oh, so it's PTO time?
Yeah,
Vacation time,
unused sick,
yeah.
unused vacation, I don't know exactly what categories are you're entitled to when you depart, but you are entitled to some portion of that when you leave.
Right. It's basically, it's just,
For the-
it's owed compensation,
Yeah.
right? That's all
That's
it is
correct.
it's required compensation as the
I just,
individual departs.
this is Mario Capola, Corporation Counsel, just because your personnel director is not on, so I can maybe pinch hit and respond. Um, per the contracts the collective bargaining agreements we have, for the employees and for those, few employees who are not, in the union, which we refer to as ordinance employees, we file the benefits as set forth in the NASA, collective bargaining agreement. Um, when somebody retires, they're entitled to their unused sick time up to a cap of I believe it's 90 days. Um, they're entitled to their vacation time that they haven't used, and I believe they receive 1 day for every year they served as we refer to as a severance payment. It's not really severance, but yeah, it's what we refer to as a severance payment. So if somebody was employed for 30 years, they would get an additional 30 days there. Um, and that's considered, and we say we refer to it as your severance payment when you leave. It's really not severance. It's when you leave, it's your unpaid sick time that's capped out at the 90 days, your vacation time, and then 1 day for every year that you served. And that payment is uh, usually provided to somebody within about 30 days after they leave their position with the city.
Thank you, Mario. Tom, can we go back to the salary adjustment thing for just a minute? Maybe I wasn't paying attention closely enough. I just want to make sure I understand it so that it doesn't come up again. In FY 26, we reduced everybody's budget by that number. So in FY 27, we're putting those numbers back into the baseline budget. Is that a correct statement?
Yeah, so we're taking a different approach this year, Ed. So when you do the year over year variance, it looks like an increase to get you back to zero. So it sort of skews the percentage up. And what we're doing for fiscal 27 is we are doing a lump sum salary lapse down at the bottom of if you will, not quite below the line, but we're doing a lump sum down near contingency at the very bottom of our chart of accounts, if you will, not allocating it back to the departments. We're doing a lump sum citywide. Yeah, so it'll make it a little bit cleaner from an accounting perspective for us. So, but the
Okay,
1,700,
thank you for the clarification. I'm sorry to
yeah,
make you have to go back over that.
yeah, no, but we'll see this we'll see it frequently over the course of the next couple of weeks, but yeah, it does skew the percentage. So.
Okay.
All right, next area is strategy and policy, and you heard me talk about that. That one is at 11.3%. And again, there'll be big savings here because the individual that we hired just started recently. So we won't spend all of that salary money there. The increase shows at 11.3%, but another interesting comparative here this shows as 46.3%, but over the course of the year, we've actually done a few transfers out of this account. So that shows the revised budget actually coming down from what the approved was. So for example, in other contractual services, the approved was 30 and it's come down to 20,500. In some cases, this was for some of those Civic Plus modules that we talked about last night at the BET.
Okay. As it relates to the training and education expense, is that compliance related training that is required by the state or other organization in order for us to do this work? I just want to understand what is in that training and education line.
Yeah, I can speak to that, Chairman. Good evening, everyone. Just from my previous role, I just happen to know a lot about that. So also in that line, our language line, citywide. So our ability to translate in real time for our residents that access our services come from that line. And there is a national equity index that, you know, they profile cities and score cities. And so, of course, at our city, we would like to be rated high. So we also do an ADA compliance training on staff. We've also used funding, how to engage in hostile residents that come into the office. So I know from the previous person, and of course, as Tom mentioned, the position has been vacant. And now that since we've hired someone, we most certainly would like to continue those trainings periodically throughout the year.
Thank you, Lamont. I appreciate the clarification.
You got it.
Well, it's on that line, Lamont. It's $7,200, I think I'm looking at, and it actual is 0 for the year. Is that correct?
Yeah, you're correct, Troy. 0 so far.
Do you think we could maybe start that on July 1st of this year instead of this year if you haven't used it yet?
I think so. I mean, the person just started. We're kind of still getting our footing, if you will. So if that's something you would like us to consider.
We are, we've been trying to avoid doing rollovers and kept them to a minimum last year, and would like to continue doing that as best as we can.
Yeah, I agree, but I mean, you haven't done it yet, and there's 3 months left. So I'm saying maybe that's something we could push till early July, the new year for the budget.
Look, it's either going to roll over, or it's going to go into the general fund, right? Given where we are, we need to consider those types of options.
Right, it's going to roll over, or it's going to go to fund balance.
Yep. So consider which is the lesser of two evils and come back to us with a recommendation.
Sorry.
I mean, I'm just saying that's going to be I'm looking at that actual column first. I'm looking for the percentage increase for each department, and then I'm looking for the actuals, and then seeing what we could not spend for this calendar year. But anyway, go ahead.
Okay. Any other questions on strategy? We'll move to legislation or legislative, Tom. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so this is basically the support area for the city council. The only major expenditure where we see anything so far is in wages and salary part-time, which is essentially the IT individual who sets up and monitors the audio video services in the council chambers. And manages all of the public hearings. So we actually might need a little more money in there for next year, but it's not a tremendous amount. And then other professional services, you'll see the actuals for the last couple of years were pretty significant. 23 and then tapered down to 20 to 47 and 34. That was primarily or almost exclusively for the charter rewrite, which is finally complete, and all the associated charges for that, publishing that in the paper, printing the new charters, et cetera. That was a pretty labor intensive and expensive effort, but that is calmed down quite a bit. So not a whole lot here other than that. And then a small amount, $3,000 roughly of office supplies. So not a whole lot here.
Okay.
And then we are on to our first department with a department head. We have Mario and Jeff Spar here to talk about Corporation Counsel. You guys want to take it away? I know Mario is here, and I think I saw Jeff's name.
Sure. Hopefully we could be very brief. I know you have a lot on your plate this evening. I think our budget is fairly straightforward. We have a relatively small department. Frankly, for a community of our size, with the complexity of our grand list and property types and values, we're a lot smaller than we probably should be. If you look at other law departments of similarly sized cities. And we're able to do, I think, a lot with a little, and we've been fortunate to get away with it, frankly, for a number of years. And I always cross my fingers and hope that we don't have a year where the dam breaks. But that's really where we're at as far as our department. We are absolutely maxed out, and I think if you talk to other departments we work with, they'll tell you that we're maxed out on what we could get out of the I think it's 5 full-time attorneys and and others on retainer with professional services that we have available to us. Frankly, the budget is fairly straightforward with us. As far as wages and salaries, there's not, we're obligated by contract as to what those are. There's a couple light items that change this year, such as, for example, our Westlaw went up, which is our research system, because AI was added to it. We've got to be able to perform against other law firms that have that on their plans. So that was a slight increase there on the legal research system that we have to use. And otherwise, we're professional services. That includes not just outside legal counsel, but it includes all professionals that we use. So, for example, we're in the second year. We're in the second year appeals of the revaluation, and we cover all the costs associated with those cases, including the appraisers. Those costs are substantial. We cover the costs of experts in any case that we have, whether it be a doctor that's providing an expert opinion, or fees associated with taking depositions for for example, a court reporter or court reporter associated with a trial where we need the trial transcript, etc. So that amount that we have proposed for the outside services was reduced. I don't have a crystal ball as to what's going to happen in the cases that we have. I guess if we settle more than we anticipate, we may be okay. And if a few of those cases go to trial, then we're probably going to have to come back to you for more money. But I would say it's a bare bones budget.
Yeah, and I just want to, if I could, Mr. Chair, just reiterate, because here you can kind of see it in action, something that I talked about in my presentation. If you look at the bottom line number, the bottom line increase, $87,500 essentially. You can, in a lot of cases, you'll see this, it's a recurring theme with each of the departments. You go back up to the salary lines, and you'll find that in a lot of cases, the increases in the salary. So if you add up the salary increases, they typically are at or pretty close to what the overall increase is for each of the departments. So that the departments did a good job of looking at other lines where they do have flexibility and do have the ability to make reductions and make those reductions. So we appreciate that.
Yep. Thank you for the statement, Jared. Ms. Yang, I believe you have a question or a comment.
Yes, Mario, in the work that you have budgeted planned with your staff, is there sufficient dollars? Has there been a sufficient allocation to look at selling excess assets that the city has, since that will certainly potentially alleviate some of the budget issues that we have, such as the property up at Philo Street, which we still own since the mosque settlement, and other assets like that. And I would be just curious at some point of time, Jared, if we could have a list and what that total of the excess, the market value of the excess assets look like.
Matt, to respond, it's a limited list. And I'm always looking for ways to see if there's an opportunity for the city to get money from something. Um, and always looking to see how could mitigate our costs. There's a limited number of properties we have. I probably could rattle them off the top of my head. The Philo Street is property is one of them.
What's that valued at in Mario, just roughly?
I'm sorry, what?
What's it valued at, the Philo Street, just roughly?
Plus minus. I mean, I'm just guessing, but because there's some pretty big Well, let me tell you what the variables are real quick. As a single lot, doing nothing else to it, it's probably like I don't know, maybe 250,000 plus minus to if you're able to divide it into two lots, um, maybe you're looking at like half, maybe 500,000. One of the issues when we looked at this a while back was um, that my recollection was over 10 years ago. And the engineer who did some of the planning for us has recently passed away. Just to give you some idea of how time flies. My recollection was that we had to do a subsurface septic system there, and there were some issues with ledge and elevations, which made it challenging, and that there wasn't a direct sewer hookup. And we had started that work with, I think, Land Tech, like probably 12 years ago, plus minus. And then for some reason, we were told to hold off, that the city wasn't looking to sell the property at that point. And I don't think we've looked back at it. But my recollection is that it's still it's a single lot, and we also looked at, is it possible with zoning to maybe to divide into two lots? I think that was really the max you could do there. Um, and so, and also we have to be smart about it. If we're ever going to sell that property, it's got to have a deed restriction that it could be nothing but a single family property. Because the last thing we need is is a religious institution coming in, buying it, and then us ending up in another RLUIPA case where there's a shifting of the burden of proof and fee shifting that we have to be concerned about. So we've got to be we have to be smart about how we do things with the disposition of land. Um, you know, we still have a few eminent domain cases, and considering maybe a land swap with one of them. So I'm keenly aware of what we have. It's not much for property that the city has available to it to possibly dispose of. Frankly, I don't think it would make a big difference in the budget, knowing what we have and roughly what the values are.
Excuse me, Mara, could you refresh my memory? What did the city pay for the Philo Street property?
I'd have to look it up. It was probably my recollection was maybe 550, 600, somewhere in that range. But it was part of a set. My recollection was we paid whatever the mosque had paid at the time, um, as part of the settlement. Um, but it really didn't reflect fair market value. It was just part of a settlement. Um, I'll also remind everybody that after that case, everybody forgot about it, and I made a hard press with our carrier that I thought they should give us more money back, which was Kerma, and took a shot at making a claim that I don't know. I figured I could make with sort of a straight face, and we got actually, I think we got like $800,000 back, more than we probably should have from that case years ago. Just so anyways, we did pretty well.
I'm sorry, so Mario, how much work do you think it entails to actually get the deed restriction and get the property subdivided and get a real estate broker in there and get it sold and put it back onto our tax rolls as a taxable property?
I think, if we had a timeline of about 6 months to a year, it could get done. I don't think it's a substantial. First of all, doing the deed restriction is not a big deal. That's easy enough to do. But we wouldn't just list it with a broker. We do an RFP or RFQ for brokers because we wouldn't just be able to pick one. So there'd be a procurement process for the broker, and then the property would be listed for sale. Prior to that, I don't know the timeline for confirming what the septic system would be and possibly dealing with zoning for dividing the property. So I would say 6 months to a year. Give you,
If if I may here,
Yep.
ladies and gentlemen, this is an important conversation and one that goes to part of the opening remarks made by myself and the mayor regarding looking at other revenue sources. That said, I would suggest we table it for this part of the conversation, which is really related to a review of the departmental budgets, acknowledging that Ms. Yang, this line of questioning and information needs to be part of the comeback from the mayor and the city to us as we go into our deliberations. I want to be respectful of
I,
everyone's time and focus this evening.
I agree. That's fine. I just wanted to raise the topic while everybody is here. Thank you.
Mr. Abrams, if I could make one comment.
Of course, Mr. Spar.
Thank you. First of all, very nice to see you.
You too.
Yeah, as Mario said, I just wanted to put it on record that we are comparatively to the other law departments of the municipalities, I'm not going to say understaffed, I want to be dramatic, but our roster is a lot smaller than a lot of these places have. And we've been going out to the bullpen that Mario has arranged with different firms, and it's very helpful. So we are very mindful of keeping the costs down. And also, you were talking about the severance packages, and I hit my 39th year here, but I am not looking to retire, so you don't have to worry about any severance from me. I routinely lose 15 days a year of vacation time. I have 465 sick days accumulated. I will only be able to take 90, so you're making out on me, Ed. So you owe me a sandwich.
I knew we liked you for a lot of reasons, Jeff. I knew we liked you for a lot of
All
reasons.
right.
I know there's not a
Thank
lot
you.
of time, so I'm not going to start playing my violin for Jeff, but we do appreciate his efforts over many years. Did you have any more questions for us regarding our budget?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Mario, really quick, Troy. Did we buy that property on Lockwood Mansions or not? Where the Lockwood? No, I'm confused. I'm not sure whether it was bought at that $1 million or whatever that. The
Yeah,
one
I mean, but by
opposite
the
the
way, I'm
north.
not. Yeah,
Oh,
and so my I don't know. I'd have to go back and check to see if we did. On that one, my recollection was to protect the city, we had the money from we had the money from the federal government. I'm blanking out on how we referred to it.
Jared, did we buy it? I don't know. I just want to know. It
Again,
was
ladies and gentlemen, we're a
a
little bit
year
off
ago.
topic for this
We
evening.
did buy it. Yes.
Yeah, we did.
Oh, we did. Oh, okay. Because I thank you for that update.
All right. Mario, I do have one question of
Sure.
clarification. In the other professional services line, you've talked about how much of that is associated with outside counsel in support of those things, but I believe you also referenced other expenses when we need expert witnesses, et cetera. Do you have a rough idea of how much of that line item is outside counsel versus other types of expenses we incur from a legal perspective?
I don't. If I had to take a guess, I would say maybe 50-50.
Okay.
For example, I'm not an employee of the city. I get paid a retainer, so um, that comes out of, I believe, that line item. But then it saves the city the money uh, for me on salary and wages. So if you look at our salary and wages from 2023 to 2027, they really haven't, over like 5 years, we really haven't gone up because we cut my head out. And so I went from basically that cost for me went from salary and wages um, to the professional services section, where now we get the benefit of a firm versus just one single individual.
Okay. Thank you
Miss,
very much for the
do you want
clarification.
us to get you that number? Do you want us to get you that?
No, it was directional, Tom. Or
Sure.
Jared, excuse me. So I now have a rough perspective there. That's all I really was looking to understand. 50-50, 80-20, good enough.
And it fluctuates obviously based on what the needs are in
Sure.
litigation. So, and lastly, I wasn't prepared to speak to properties that we have and my understanding of what those properties are, but I'm more than happy to look into it and if any commissioners want to reach out to me directly for a more detailed dive on any properties, I'm more than happy to assist with that. So like I said, I wasn't planning to discuss it, but there certainly is a very limited
Understood.
number.
It was,
Wish we had more land than we own in Norwalk. That's all I can say.
right. Thank you. Any other
Thank you.
questions for Corporation Counsel? If not, let's move to the town clerk.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening, Rick. Cut right to the
Well-
chase. You are at 6.1%, and consistent with others. The vast majority is 5.7% in salaries, $36,000 of the $47,000 is there. A slight bump in what do we got here? Your part-time salaries, and if I recall your situation in the last year plus was you had a long-term employee. I'm sorry, an employee out on long-term disability, so you had to backfill with some part-time assistance. And I thought that situation was resolved. Is that still a
No,
challenge?
it's resolved. We actually had
Okay.
a meeting on it today. It's going well, but it was a tough, year and a half for filling in the spots and stuff. But we've got it down pretty well.
Okay. Anything else? There aren't a whole lot of variants. Well, there are very few variances to discuss, but anything else you want to bring to our attention this evening in terms
No,
of
I mean,
your budget?
the only expenses that we seem to, the what ifs, and I think the registrars will say the same thing, is we don't know what elections are going to be anymore. You know, they'd like to have us do a lot of things, but if they don't have the money available for us to do them, it's going to be a little tough to do it. So, I just want to mention that with my staff, it's interesting that the salaries and everything are where they are because out of the 7 women that worked in the office, the average length of employment has been 14 years. So I'm just saying that they do a good job with what they have, and we'll continue to do the same.
Thank you, Rick. Any questions for Rick from anyone? Thank you, Rick. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, next up sequentially is Human Resources. Sharon is actually on another call and asked to be pushed back. So with the permission of the board, we will jump to register our voters. Is that okay with everyone?
Sure.
Okay, I believe we have Stuart. I mean, since I'm sharing my screen, I can't see the participants real easily, but I'm pretty sure I saw Diana and or Stuart on earlier.
I'm here.
Yep,
we're here. We're both
Okay,
here.
yeah. And just to refresh everyone's memory, you know that that Diana and Stuart have been before the BET numerous times this year for contingency requests as a result of early voting charges, and we agreed that they would put in now that they have some history and some trends for early voting, that they would put in those charges, or excuse me, those expectations in the 2027 request. So that's why you're going to see a pretty decent bump in well, again, compared to the revised number, it's not a significant, but compared to the approved budget from last year, it's a pretty significant jump. But anyway, I will turn it over to Diana and Stuart to talk through their budget. Go ahead, take it away, guys.
Thanks. Yeah, Stuart and I prepared some comments, and basically, as you said, Tom, as we've discussed at our recent BET meetings, we're now incorporating the 14-day state mandated early voting costs into this budget cycle, which obviously includes, supplies, poll worker staffing, training, and all the potential costs associated with a primary and a primary's early voting costs and potentially a post-election audit. Unfortunately, the state legislative session is well underway, and all indications are that the 14-day early voting requirement will remain in place for 2026. So from a planning perspective, we do need to budget responsibly under the assumption that we're going to have those 14 days. And if there is a primary, which it's likely, we'll be looking at early voting at least 6 days for that as well. Over the past two elections, despite the rollout and expansion of early voting, we worked closely with everybody and decided not to fully build those costs into the base budget. Instead, we did come back for special appropriations as needed. But now that we've had time to gather the data and the evaluating trends, I think it really makes sense for us to accept that early voting in Norwalk is not temporary. It's widely used and pretty popular here in Norwalk. Paired with strong turnout trends, and it's just become clear operationally and transparently that we do need to include it. We're challenged because a lot of these mandates are state related and they're not funded. So while we do receive a small grant to offset early voting costs, it just does not come close to 20 days potentially of early voting, to elections and potentially even post-election audit. So that's pretty much everything. We are really actively trying to figure out ways to minimize, some staffing in areas where it's possible without obviously, um, you know, without obviously having any gaps in the proper staffing and compliance for the state in terms of our elections. But we do feel that there are areas with training, maybe moving to some virtual training versus in person where possible. And we're really just trying to figure out the financial impact the best that we can. So we'll definitely be working to do that. But it makes, I think, good fiscal and operational sense to incorporate these costs and not have to rely mid-cycle on the appropriation. So that's pretty much everything from me. Stuart, do you want to add to that?
Well, I just wanted to mention that, the obvious areas that we can't control and that are unknowns, in addition to the famously phrased unknown unknowns. We just got a cybersecurity update today because of the attack on Iran and the counterattacks and all that. Where this affects us would be with the potentially with police presence, cyber security, and so forth. Of course, it's just March. First primary is August, so who knows where everything will be then. But police presence at the polls is, of course, an issue that we largely deal with by the police chief and the mayor and us distributing what we need. But the amount, if you have more police like we did 2 years ago, is obviously more cost. As if you've been following the news, the president is trying to get all the polling places to check citizenship. We have no idea how to do that because there's no list of citizens to check on. But obviously, if that comes in, first it'll be a fight. That'll probably be at the state level, not Mario can rest easy. We probably won't be litigating it locally, but we still don't know what that would be and what that might cost us. And it would be very difficult to do, of course, this quickly with no real place to look or idea of what we would have to keep or record or store that would prove citizenship. If any of you want to understand the problem, look in your wallet and purse and see what you have that proves that you're a citizen. Your driver's license doesn't do it. You probably don't carry your birth certificate with you if you can find it. I have my passport card, but not everybody by any means has a passport. And it's not clear where we'd go for the other stuff and where would we get the training to know what a valid birth certificate was from Hawaii or Alaska or who knows where. So this it's just unknown whether this could hit us. And this is the world we live in. We will have more voters this year because we typically do. It's a governor's election year, probably in the 30,000 range. We had 20,000 who actually voted last time, but that's really mostly ballot costs, which are not a big item, really.
Thank you,
And then
Stuart.
next year it'll be back down. And we'll take credit for it, of course, even though that's just because it's a municipal year.
Joe, I believe you have a question.
I do, I believe Anne was before me though.
Sorry, I can't see whose hand went up first or second.
Go ahead, Joe, if you're.
Okay, thank you. Stuart, thanks for being here. The only question, line I have a question on here is row 118 on this page. It's wages and salary temporary. It looks lumpy, so 25 actual was 235 and 27 revised request is 215. But these numbers are sort of all over the map and it's one of the bigger
It's
numbers.
the poll workers, and that's where that early voting poll workers end up. So
Absolutely. So I'm looking at 23 at 144, 24 at 147. I understand those are a little different conditions. 25 at 235. So far, we're at 159, 160. The request was 100, and now we're revised to 215. So what's the kind of decision flow in getting to 215 from the history and the original request?
I don't know. Diane worked with Tom on that, and I'm not certain, but we have the history now of what you've approved and what's come in on these other things, and of course, a lot of that.
Gotcha. So Diana, can you explain how we got to 215?
Yeah, so one of the biggest concerns that we have is training, because we've been met with new tabulators, a new centralized voting system, and then additionally, we have a new protocol that will be in place for early voting that operationally requires a completely new policy written in terms of the envelopes for early voting will no longer be utilized. So we're concerned that we are going to have to do more training and potentially add to our staffing workflow during early voting as a result. Again, I suppose these are some what ifs, but I think we're really just trying to um, I think we're really just trying to make sure that we're covered the best way possible so that we don't operationally run into any issues because there's just so much unknown right now. For example, that bill was just passed regarding early voting where they've omitted the envelopes, but there's a process that we're still waiting on guidance for where a ballot log and signature will newly be implemented. And so we'll have to have someone who's able to staff that and learn that process. So I think it's a lot of that that we have concerns with.
On the other hand, it's potentially going to save us a little bit on people not having to open those envelopes on election day, which
Right.
when like think of 2024, we had 16,000 envelopes to open. We'd be more than happy to save those people. Those ballots would already be in the machine or in the system and been counted, which will be helpful. But we don't know about signing the log and what that's going to take. So that's why it's fuzzy.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I hear
And
my
the governor's got to sign that bill too, which hasn't happened yet.
Joe, does that finish your question before we go to Ms. Yang?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Abrams. My first question is, as I look at the spreadsheet, and Tom, this would be a question for you. It says fiscal 27 request of 690, and then the CFO mayor request is 927. What is the difference here? What number should we be looking at?
The 927 is where we are now. The reason is the original request was done back in, say, October, November. That was before we had decided to include all of the early voting trends. We hadn't made a decision on that yet.
Okay,
That was
so
when they were still coming to the BET for all the contingency money.
okay, that's fine. So here's, and we didn't, when we did the transfers, we didn't go into it because we decided to save this discussion for this discussion.
Right.
If we're spending more money on early voting, which means people are coming in, doing their votes, theoretically, I would think that might mean you need to have less staffing at the polls. And my observation as a consumer at the polls is that I go in and I'm like, there are hardly any people there. But there are a lot of workers. And my recollection historically is that a lot of people who work the polls, that was, they were volunteers, like from the League of Women Voters. And so it's as if we have maintained the same infrastructure as if everybody was going to the polls, and then we add the early voting on top of it. So if I look in perspective, this 927, that is more than it takes for Rick McQuaid to run the entire town clerk office. And it equates to about $50 per vote. I would have to think that there is some way to potentially consolidate this. So if you have early voting, do we need to have all of the, and rather than please saying you can't do this, if people could maybe just take a look at it, is do we need to have all of these voting spots open? Can we have some be combined? Can we have more people just go to City Hall to vote, such that you could reduce this number tremendously? Could we, instead of having paid people, can we go out to the League of Women Voters and ask for volunteers? Because I do believe that, I mean, there might have been, I don't know, a dozen people there, and there might have been 5 voters in there. So to me, I think that it appears to be that you could have some opportunity to reduce costs significantly, because this is a big number. This is $50 per voter.
That's the entire department, however, not, and that would include our salaries and everything else. It's not just the election that's $50. $50 times 20,000 voters last year would be $1 million.
Well, your budget is close to $1 million.
Yeah. Overall, that includes
Right.
everything else we do during the year as well in $50 a vote. And that was last year, which is our lowest voting number.
Yeah, yes, but I'm not looking at it on a marginal cost.
I understand.
If $1 million is supporting 20,000 votes, regardless of everybody, that's still $50 a voter. So in this day and age, in the electronic age, you would think a cost per voter should be, I don't know, a couple of dollars. So I would just ask the mayor and Mr. McQuaid and Mr. Schmidt to take a hard look as to how we do this registrar of voters, because I would not have thought that this department would have cost more than the city clerk and probably more than the building department and maybe even more than the tax collector department, particularly because my historical recollection was these voting polls were staffed by volunteers. So that
not in the 18 years that I've been registrar have we had any volunteers?
All right, at this
Can I
point,
ask a
though,
question?
what
Can I
I'd
ask a
like to
clarifying
do,
question?
what I'd like to do here is mark this as an open item for comeback in our deliberations in terms of what are the opportunities for efficiency, please. I'm not going to get into a debate on cost per voter. I'm not willing to entertain that right now. I think it's a fair question to ask regarding opportunities for significant efficiencies across this department.
Chairman, can I ask a quick question just to clarify and maybe narrow the focus of
Yep.
the request is, Ms. Yang, is your concern more around the staffing around election time, or is it the permanent staffing
My,
of the rec?
I don't know. It's for you all to decide. My concern is the absolute size of dollars, $927,000, which is more than running other departments for a vote for one day out of the year. Seems like a lot of money in this digital age that we are in.
We've got 25 days of early voting and
Let,
2 full days of elections, including.
let
Okay.
me try and frame it differently to help here.
But
Let me, before you frame it, let me just add this thing. I have to agree. I went in on a Thursday in the early voting. I was one of two voters and there was 20 people in City Hall. The question I would like you to ask, Jared, is how many people vote in the early voting versus on election day? And I think that would help figure out how many, the staffing levels. So that's my point. Thank you.
Yeah, it's similar to where I was going to go with a summary, right? There are a fixed number of voters in the city of Norwalk. They now have opportunities to vote over a greater number of days,
Right.
which requires staffing. But what is the optimal level of staffing each day based on the volume of voters that we're seeing? Because if there are lots of people taking advantage of early voting, and there are, it would stand to reason that you need less resource to handle the volume of voters on election day. If we could look into that and determine the impacts on budget for this department, that is what we're asking for.
I think we can reasonably very much do so. And I think we're already implementing some ways we're looking at, trying to maybe offer like civic service and see if poll workers who maybe aren't willing to volunteer are willing to cap at a stipend for their civic duty, things like that. But at the same time, we do acknowledge that it is a 15 plus hour day, and gone are the days really of just checking a name or there is so many components, chain of command, bipartisan. We can't just have one ballot clerk. You have to have a Democrat or and a Republican. So a lot of that comes into play as well. But I definitely hear you, and I definitely think that there are ways that we can take a hard look at this and definitely definitely revisit and take a look and see what can be done. So I appreciate that, and we're gonna do that.
Thank you, Diana. That's the ask, right? We're not going to solve it tonight, but that's why it'll stay as an open item as we get closer to our deliberations.
Yeah, and I think for us, we just want to make sure that we're compliant. We want to make sure that we're hosting a successful election, that, there are no errors, there are no, and it's very important that we get it right. We wish it were one day. It's not. It's at minimum, like Stuart said, 20 days for early voting, and then typically a November election and a primary. But yeah, I mean, it's complex. We have a lot of districts, we have a lot of polling locations. A lot of that is written in and goes back to how many districts we have in our charter and things like that. So there's a lot happening. And then also just the component in today's political climate, we're asked, to have a police officer at every location, to have police coverage during early voting at City Hall. So there's just so many factors that we're being met with, in addition to, state mandates that, they gifted us
Let me-
tabulators, but gave us a $17,000 maintenance fee per year. So,
Right.
it's just a lot of that too. But yeah, let's definitely do that. And I would invite, anyone to feel free to reach out to us, feel free to come in. Like let's talk things out. Let's, we're here. We're happy to go through that.
Thank you. All right. Shall we with that, Tom, where do you want to go next?
Let's move on to Chief of Staff. We got Lamond here, and Chief of
I'm
Staff
back.
encompasses just sorry, was there a question? No.
Oh, no, that was me saying I'm back.
Oh, okay, all right. Chief
I'm
of
still in the
Staff, but
office.
that also covers city clerk,
Yeah.
communications, customer service, and et
All
cetera,
of
et
that.
cetera. So starting up with the Chief of Staff section, and just scrolling down, let's get right to the total. So overall, you can see it's an increase of just under $87,000 year over year, or 7.1%. Again, as we've seen in the past, most of that is in the salaries. And for 26 actuals, as I said before, you'll see some significant salary savings in the communication area, because we never did, or at least so far, we have not hired a webmaster as of yet, but getting pretty close on that front, as from what I've heard. And so we will go back up to the top to Chief of Staff, and I'll turn it over to Lamont.
Great. No, thank you. And good evening again. So as you all said, I did have an opportunity to look at it. And as Tom pointed out, the overall changes as I review the budget are primary personnel related, our normal step progressions, and then definitely looking, talking with our city clerk and other departments, mostly tied to IT services, Civic Plus. Those software expenses are pretty high, but really fall under our statutory requirements and public notice and reports. So definitely happy to respond to any questions you may have when you look at the different and various line items that I can speak to.
I have a question and a comment.
Go ahead, Ms. Yang.
So, Mr. Daniels, 10 years ago, there was not the position of Chief of Staff. And right now, your department is $1.3 million. So, is there a way, when you look at all that you do, that you can at least come in flat year over year?
So what I can tell you by my review, the current budget, I think it was pointed out earlier that as ordinance employees, we are entitled to the Nassau steps and increases. As you all know, as one of the drivers with the step increases, we were entitled to that. So you'll see that reflected in the budget. And that line item, that also speaks to the front desk reception, which is an admin 2. The executive assistant is also in that line item, and our FOIable coordinators in that line item. And then there's also a bump, as pointed out earlier. There were 2 other people in the department that received what we call the severance. So you'll see that reflected as well.
So here, let me take it another step back to Mr. Ellis. I think this department has grown over a period of time where a number of the positions were actually in other departments, like the mayor's department. Can you identify within this department what was actually new, or what was actually changed? So I'm helping you, Mr. Daniels.
Okay, help me. I'll take help if it's positive.
Maybe the $1.3 million that didn't exist, that the chief of office staff did not exist 10 years ago.
Right.
The $1.3 million was part of it was in other departments, and I would just like to know what that baseline looks like.
Well, I know for certain that the webmaster position, that was a new ad a few years ago. And I think the customer service center has been around for quite some time. The
So
reorg
that's,
happened.
yeah.
Yeah, the reorg
That's all.
happened just a couple of years before my arrival. We've always had a city clerk I think that's a mandated position. Communications, I think, has been around for quite some time.
Yeah.
But in terms of new headcount ads, webmaster is the only one I think is like a new approval within, say, the last 3 to 4 years. Is that what you're asking, Ann, or is it something else?
I'm asking whether or not some of these items that comprise the 1,000,003 were actually in other departments.
Yeah,
So,
so let me help Tom.
yeah.
What of if we go back 3 to 5 years? What of the now chief of staff expense is net new versus was existing expense simply sitting in other departments?
Okay.
So city clerk is very likely to have been an existing expense that just sat elsewhere.
Hmm.
Right.
So when we say this department has grown to 1,000,003 in expense, well, really all the city clerk related expense has historically been in our budget. It's just been sitting in different line items.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't have to, you guys don't have to come back immediately, but if Tom, maybe that's just it. If we could just put this as an open item,
Okay.
Yep.
Mr. Abrams.
Great.
Yep, absolutely.
Ed, this is Troy. Can I just follow up one question quickly? Lamont, thank you for your work in the past. Obviously, you've done a great job when you were running the departments over the years. And if I'm not mistaken, you always came in under budget. If I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong.
No, I'm going to take you. You're right.
And I'm just going to follow up on Ann's question. She said, "Is there anything in your budget that you think you can reduce?"
No, that's a great question. And you know, I've been here for 6 years, so I understand this process very well. And I did look at the chief of staff budget. And I think one of the things that we did look at, and we'll have to get better, I have to get a better understanding, is that I know that we're looking at there may be an opportunity for us to decrease our public notices. Those are extremely pricey. And so I think that's the 5231. And we are learning that we may not have to publicize everything that was the former practice. And so definitely I'm happy to come back or provide that information to Jared if in fact that we don't have to, I can see a significant change, a significant reduction in that particular line item. The other thing is the software expenses are pricey. The Civic Plus, I'm learning that as we go along to upload the Civic Plus, our FOI management system. That is a new purchase. We are trying to digitize and modernize our systems, as that was that I recall from our previous roles, specifically to the efficiency study, really encourage the city to move away from paper. I heard something in the background. So, you know, I mean, I definitely take a deeper dive to your point, Commissioner, to really look at that. But Ms. Yang, I do want to, it's coming back to me, you know, to your point, and I think I understand better. For example, and this is something we'll have to just go back historically. For example, there was a role assistant to the mayor under the reorg. It became chief of staff. So to your point, these positions kind of they existed. Maybe the titles have changed, but that's definitely something we can go back and I'll support Tom and Jared to look at, to your point around looking at the chief of staff as a department and where is that coming from? So I think I have a better understanding of what you were getting at just from just my memory.
Yeah, and just one example would be the Community and Grants Administration was that in another department. But why don't we leave this as an open item?
Yep.
Absolutely, I appreciate it.
Yep. And Lamont, in terms of the things you'll look at potential reductions, I would address that as part of my ask at the opening of the conversation, looking at a 10% challenge. So
You got
thank
it.
you.
Oh, thank you, my pleasure again.
Any other questions for Lamont at this point? All right. Tom, do we want to go back to
Thank
HR
you.
or do we need to go to police or fire? I'm not sure.
Yeah, so Sharon said the later the better at this point. Why don't we jump over to police and when we wrap up police before we jump to fire, I will check in with Sharon again. If everyone's okay with that.
Sure.
Okay. All right, so let me blow this one up a little bit. How are we looking size wise on police? Good.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay. All right, let me head up to the top.
Although I've got a second screen with the same spreadsheet up, so I want to make sure everybody else is good with the size of type. Seeing no complaints, let's keep going.
Okay, and we should have a couple on here. I see Mickey. I see Sharon. Actually, Sharon, do you want to jump in? As
Tom,
long as
can you move to the bottom percentage?
No.
Uh, Or you
okay,
gonna,
you want to scroll all the
or
way
you want to do
down?
it by each section of
Well,
it?
yeah, yeah, good point. Why don't we
Okay,
start? Why
all
don't we
right,
start with
fine.
the summary?
Yeah, start with
Yeah,
the summary and then go backwards.
yeah. So, but actually, I see Sharon on now. Chief Walsh and Mickey, do you guys mind if we go through human resources real quick?
Sure, go
Oh,
ahead.
What?
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
Sharon, are you okay? Sharon, are you okay with that?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we
Yep.
got you.
All right,
Okay.
well, Chief, I'm much quicker than you are, so I promise not to hold you up.
All right, and now we are back here with HR and personnel on this page and her total number, total of $920,000, year over year, 69,000 or 8.2%. 48,000 on the salaries. Really, yeah, the only significant variance, 3,400 in training and education. And I will let you take it from here, Sharon.
All right, well, it's my first time presenting my budget to you, so if I don't answer it the way you'd like, please let me know. But basically, I've been here about 4 months. I've been reviewing the department, and there are probably a few things I would love to be able to do, but I understand that we're in a little bit of a crunch this year. And so all we've done is a basic cost of living in order to maintain what we're doing today. So we're not going to do anything. There's no upgrades, there's no major changes, there's no capital improvements, there's nothing happening except maintaining what we have today. Um, should I go through individual line items or?
So Sharon, let me start for you if I may. You're
Okay.
saying the on the first line item, wages and salary regular, the large increase year to
Mhm.
year is driven by the fact that we're now fully staffed in the department. Is that a correct statement from my side?
We are not yet fully staffed. We have reposted a job that has been open um, for a little while. We had a benefits manager, and then at some point about a year and a half ago, when that person left, they changed it to a coordinator, I believe, or a specialist. And we have not had any luck hiring, but we desperately need that role. So we've had to go back to that old salary, which is a little bit higher, obviously, to try and get a manager level person in here. And we're hoping within the next 2 months we will be fully staffed.
And I know you said you've recently posted that role. Are you getting quality candidates quickly for that role? Just thinking about if there's any less than 12-month annualization we can do on that expense.
Sure. So it literally is just going out now. So I don't have a list of candidates yet. I will tell you that we've been averaging on the other role maybe 15 to 20 candidates, which is not ideal for a position. You want to have that as your pool, not as your entire applicant pool. Um, we did go back through the prior, I guess, like 2023, 2024
to see if there was anybody who kept reapplying. Maybe they really wanted to work for the city of Norwalk, and we couldn't find any qualified candidates. So we're starting from zero. We do have one person that we liked kind of in the specialist role, and I will revert to that if I cannot find a manager. He's got basic qualifications, but not what I think we need, to be a higher level. So that's a long way of saying to you that if we're in March and we post the job for 30 days and we interview in April and we do find someone to give notice, I do think by July 1st we will have someone in. And so I don't really see any savings. If it takes longer than that, it's a struggle for the department, and we'll probably end up using the time as either overtime or something else.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
You're
And
welcome.
then my only other question before I turn it over to other members of the BET, row 111 of the spreadsheet, Employee Wellness Awards. That looks like a significant year-to-year increase. Can you talk to that a little bit, please?
Yes. So we were requesting some money because we started doing some initiatives. When I first came in, the prior CHRO had already approved a few items, meaning a holiday event around Halloween and a few other things to engage employees. I do think we've seen a bit of a downward trend in morale in some of the city, but we're trying to get more engagement. And so she did not have the budget for the items that were already approved from the prior person, and we've taken from other lines. We didn't want to take from other lines. We wanted to have it set. So we're going to have activities throughout the year that are health and wellness. We've looked at working with the city as best we can with Parks and Recreation to find benefits, like if you don't live in Norwalk and you work here, can you still get a library card? So we're trying to find things that are basically free, but not everything will be free, and we're going to have events on site. For example, in April going into May, we're going to be getting ready for open enrollment. And in the past, not a lot has been done with open enrollment. And then we have questions afterwards where people miss the deadline because they didn't understand. And we can't always get them back on benefits. So we want to do a bigger event with a lot of education, bring them in and introduce them to all the benefits, explain the benefits to them, obviously have a little bit of food or something else to get people to show up, because that's what happens. And we want to start getting much more engaged on each event with people, and that takes a little bit of money. We're also doing Excel classes coming up this year and a few other things to help people be able to look for career growth. So learning things like Excel and other types of computer classes are going to help them to be able to grow with the city.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
You're welcome.
Questions from other board members?
This is Troy. This is for Jared. Is that a common line item for all the departments, Jared?
No,
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 and I believe
this is for
just
HR
clarification
and
there
the
too,
service.
Sharon. Those expenses for those activities are for all City of Norwalk employees. They just sit within your budget. Yes.
Correct.
Oh, it's
Yeah, so
not
when
just
we do
the.
something internally, we may get people at City Hall, but then we may have to also go out to DPW and the garages and stuff like that.
Okay. It's not just for your employees in your group.
No, it's
Citywide.
all my employees. I have 700 people that I'm going to work with, so we include everyone and everything.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you for the
Thank you.
clarification.
Additional questions for Sharon? All right, seeing none. Sharon, thank you. And I guess now we can go over to PD, Tom.
Thank
Okay.
you all. Have a good evening.
All right, thank you, Sharon. Thanks for your patience, Chief and Mickey. Now back over to PD. And as I was starting to say, total recommendation at this point is 32.2 million, an increase of 1.6, and that percentage is 5.4% year over year. And now I will open that back up for the line item detail and take it away, Chief and/or Mickey.
Good evening, everyone. I just want a brief overview and some highlights as I open. The overall budget request minus the Board of Education extra security overtime and contractual salary increases is actually $2,000 less than the current fiscal year. Within the police budget, there's $2.1 million of in-kind services that are given to the Board of Education and related expenses. Only 6 items have a requested increase of over in excess of 10%. Only 11 line items department-wide have a requested increase of any amount. 10 line items department-wide have a requested decrease. 87.1 of the budget are salary-related expenses. The overtime as a percentage of salaries in NOC is 12.76, which is far below neighboring police departments. Just for contrast, Stanford is close to 40%. We're only at 12.76. And only 4% of the line items have increased departmental wide.
Thank you, Chief. That's a very helpful overview. That said, Chief, how large is the force? How many officers are on the force at this point in time?
We have 183 sworn personnel, but we also have 35 civilians. That includes all combined dispatch. We underneath the police department budget is the 911 center, which controls police and fire, and then civilian staff as administration and records and data processing, which are very reasonable numbers, and they're quite efficient. Just a note, as probably from an efficiency standpoint, you have to realize in 2001, this police department handled 48,000 calls for service. In 2024, this police department handled 83,000, and in 2025, we handled 79,000 calls for service at the same staffing levels. Is something that needs to be considered by this board is that we are doing more with the same amount of money that we always have at sometimes efficiency. We're probably working at some of the most efficient levels I've seen this police department in my 38 years here and 8 years as an administrator. We work closely every day with Mickey to cut costs and manage costs daily, weekly, monthly, and quarterly. So there's a lot of communication every single day in regards to expenses, forecasting of other things. Probably the only initiative is the translation service, which is 82,000, which is an $82,000 expenditure. Let me explain what that is. That you might have seen it in recent news articles in a newspaper. Our current Axon body cam program, we are currently in a 90-day test phase for having a translation service embedded into our body cam program. So if an officer doesn't speak the language of it, that body cam has the ability to translate 56 languages. So that is our only new initiative currently in this requested operating budget.
Thank you. Questions for the chief or for anybody on the police department staff related to the line items?
Ed, this is Troy, real quick. Chief, thank you for your comments. You said 183. How does that compare over the last 3 years?
We've remained steady at 183. We've been 183 sworn since 2022.
And what do you average for retirements every year? I mean, I know it's not consistent, but
between resignations, retirements, and other reasons why people have to leave, 4 to 6, maybe.
that's it. Okay.
Yeah, so it ebbs and flows. Sometimes, people.
So 4 to 6. Okay.
Yes, 4 to 6.
And you're saying if you take out the 2.1 million that you're supporting the Board of Ed, what would your request be to increase your budget? I just wanted to make sure that I knew that number. It goes from 8.1 to what? Or 8 to what?
Mickey, can you help me on that one?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. If I may, let me just start by saying this, Troy. The two factors that the chief spoke about initially was 686,000 for Board of Ed extra security overtime and 1.4 million in change for contractual salary increases. If you were to actually take those two items out, we'd be at flat. We're about $2,000 under last year. If you took out the additional 2.1, we'd actually be under by about 7.5%. We'd be about 7.5% less than we were last year if you took out all four of those items. So our line item increase, as the chief mentioned earlier, we've only literally had six line items go up more than 10%, 11 overall, and 10 have been decreased. So if you take all that out, which we don't have any control over, we'd be about 7.8% under last year. And the last thing I want to say is the $686,000 that we are asking for this year, the police department has funded over the last 3 years through overtime efficiency and or vacancy and overtime reduction, and it's been handled by rollovers, as this board knows, because I always come to you guys for that. And but this year, since that doesn't exist, we had it requested in the budget. I hope that answered your question. I'm sorry. You're on mute, Troy.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you. You guys do a great job, obviously, and we have to fund the school security. There's no question on my mind on that, and I appreciate those comments. Thank you.
Mickey, I do have one follow-up question, if I may. And I've been trying to scroll through the budget to find the answer myself, and I'm just not quick enough on it. Half jokingly, half seriously, over the course of the last 12 to 18 months, we've had lots and lots of conversations regarding vehicle related expenses for the police department and all the needed vehicle upgrades, et cetera. And I think you did a great job addressing most of that. Can you tell me at the macro level what the vehicle related costs for the department are planned for FY27 versus where they were at for FY26? Is that a number you know, or if not, we can leave it as an open item and you can get back to us?
Currently, the vehicle related costs are handling out of the capital budget request. We just recently took in a fleet of cars that we had ordered a year ago. So I am reducing that request than previous years. As you know, in dealing with this commission for 3 years now, you knew the state of the fleet was in January and February 2020. We made great strides in improving the fleet, and it looks good. It's performing well. We've been able to get rid of and auction off a lot of vehicles through purchasing. So we're at a good spot right now, and we'll be looking through our capital budget to reduce some of those costs moving forward.
And Chief, is that a change? Because again, as Mickey continued to come to the BET, it was operating related expense for vehicle technology, other vehicle related equipment. So again, if we don't have it here, we can table it. Just
Yeah, that maybe Mickey could fill in, but a lot of the operating costs, a lot of it comes to unfunded mandates from the state of Connecticut for Axon dash cams, or the laptops in the cars, all the modems, the technology on an average is a $30,000 upgrade to every single car.
Right.
And a lot of those is necessary for the officers to run their MDTs, and the Axon, we need an MDT in every car for the modems to run the body cams, the dash cams, which are integrated with the officers' body cam and their taser. So if they're putting on their lights and sirens, their body cams are going on, and it's all a sympathetic system. So it's all relying. So the technology is growing, and so are the prices.
Yep. And I'm just trying to understand if over the course of the last 12 months, we made the technology upgrades we need and or if there is still significant money in the budget for next year for technology upgrades and if that's required.
So just to quickly just add to what the chief said, like Chief Wall said, all of the major expenses, meaning the purchase of the vehicles and their upfits, are in the capital budget. What I've come to you for over the years, and usually at the end of the year, is there are times we had to redirect some operational funds for technology upgrades, like the chief said, dash cams, modems, stuff like that. So that I don't have a significant amount of money budgeted in this budget for that specific purpose. It
Okay,
would
thank you.
probably have to be unexpected and redirected as in the past. Now, there are maintenance line items, say in special services and so on, for those cars to be serviced. But I think what you're referring to would have to be money that's either redirected or transferred if needed. And at this point, there's not a lot in there.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm sorry for my
You're welcome.
long-winded and unclear question.
No problem.
You're welcome.
Chief, I had a question about line item 5121. So FY23, I see the actual was 516 and then it dropped down to 376. Then the next year 369 and then 516 again. It seems like uh the idea was to true up and keep it at 516. Wanted to understand what wages and salary premium is and that $200,000 increase, the justification behind it.
In 5121, wages and salary administration.
For
Yeah.
uniform patrol, chief, not in administration. I have it highlighted on the screen share.
Okay.
Yeah, so it looks like it's averaged about 370-ish, 24 and 25. So far in 26, you're at 210. So maybe coming in probably around the same range. But our ask for 27 is 516. So maybe a brief explanation on what premium pay is in the PD world, and then and where you think you'll end up, and why you're looking for 516 for 27 again.
Yeah, that would include shift differentials. So as the union got pay raises, the shift differentials also go up because it's reflective of their hourly wage. So they got not only retroactive last year, but they also got 4 years of pay raises. So if you work, it's 11% if you work on the midnight tour, and you get 9% if you work 3 to 11. So as the contractual increases went up, it's reflective of their premium pay, and not only, it also includes holidays, also Christmas, Thanksgiving, Easter. So that's what's considered premium pay. So the percentage would rise because their salaries also rose.
Okay.
Okay.
And just one follow-up question. Just want to make sure, Chief, that do you have, are you comfortable with the training and the protection and the equipment for all your officers in your budget? Just want to make sure of that.
Yeah, we're holding our own right now. We're doing a good job with the training. We make choices to pick what training is best for the officers. Of course, every 3 years, every year, a third of the police department has to go through recertification. So every officer has to get recertified every 3 years. So we do a third, a third, a third. So by the end of the third year, everybody has their enough credit hours to keep their post certification. That is within those 60 credit hours, we have highlighted all the specific post requirements, but we also add de-escalation training, implicit bias training. We also do, car stop training and other officer safety training. We do wellness training. We highlight areas where we find that we could spend the best money to get the most impact to the officers.
And the officers have the most, you feel comfortable with the equipment that they have, the body armor and all that stuff. You're comfortable with all that?
Yes, we've been able to do some good things in the past 2 years. We upgraded firearms, which were 12 years old last year, through a capital project. We're doing some other upgrades. You have to realize we're up to, in the past 4 years, 65 new officers. So that's great strides right there. So within 4 years, we've been able to train and equip and get on the road 65 new officers with new equipment and new training. So there's a whole change going on. But to your point, we're at a good spot.
Thank you.
Any other questions
And
for
I
the
have a
chief
question.
or Mickey? Yes, please go ahead.
Hey, Chief. You said from 2020 to 2025, your calls doubled. At what point does it become critical that you need more headcount?
Um, I would say if we have, my goal was to add more school resource officers. To my end, there was some discussion last year that if we started to add school resource officers, we could start to trim away some of the school security overtime because technically what we're doing is with the school security overtime, we're geographically placing officers in a rotating basis to do security. So we don't have enough school resource officers to cover every school. So they rotate also. So school security, as you see, is a major priority. It was a
Yeah.
major priority under Mayor Rilling. It's a major priority under Mayor Smith, and it's also a major priority of my administration. So we feel that it's vital, and we're working continually with Norwalk Public Schools Safety Division and Dr. Estrella Central Office to make sure that we're doing the best what we can and that's exactly what we're doing right now. But to your point, to your question, is that an ultimate goal and objective of this police department is to add personnel to provide more school resource officers.
Thanks.
Any
You're welcome.
additional questions? Chief Mickey, thank you very much. Very helpful information.
Thank you. Have a nice evening.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Tom, I believe that takes us to fire department, correct?
Yes. Um, so who do we have? We have Chief McCabe and Assistant Chief Mark Conti, and I thought I saw Mr. Reardon. There he is. Am I missing anybody?
Oh, you've got everybody, Tom.
Okay, I do. I have the three. Yeah, so just in summary, we've got a recommendation of 25.1, year over year of 1.7 million, which comes out to 7.4% overall. We've got a couple of items to talk to on this, and this also is the first department that actually has an additional headcount ask. So we'll address that when we get to that particular department within the division. But I will expand this. And then we can go line by line, starting with administration. And Chief, you can take it away when you're ready.
Thank you, Tom. Good evening, everyone. So like the police department, majority of our budget, of course, goes to contractual wages and salaries. My staff and I have gone line by line, and in this particular year's budget, a lot of the significant variances that you'll pick out in the different divisions are actually a result of clerical cleanup that we've done in this year's budget. So, closing down certain lines that we were not using anymore, splitting up other lines into different divisions where the money made more sense. So, for example, if you look at the administration division, you've got account 5211. You'll see a negative 100% there. That money was actually moved to the mechanics division, account 5212. And that was, you'll see there, 116.4% increase. Basically, that money was just moved over to the mechanics division to cover shipping costs. So as you see some of those variances in the different divisions, that's really what was going on. A lot of that can be, can look like big increases or big decreases, but it's really just clerical work. As far as some of the more significant ones that were increases, under the administration division, account 5741 is a new line. It's IT hardware, which we have not had in there before, and you'll see that's a $10,000 increase, so that affects the bottom line there. Under fire suppression, account 5276, you'll see negative 86.2%. That was another one of those accounts that we broke up. That old account had firefighters' station uniforms and personal protective equipment all lumped into one line, which really didn't make sense because those are very different purchases and different requirements. So we broke that one up. In fire training division, you'll see account 5258, 176.7% increase. That is due to our promotional exams, which we'll have to give in FY27. Those are given every 3 years, and this happens to be a year where we'll be giving the lieutenant's promotional exam, captains, and deputies chiefs. So that money, basically reappears every 3 years in the budget, and this is one of those budgets where you'll see that. I'm happy to talk about any other specific lines. I think those are some of the ones that really stand out. But if you have any other questions on specifics, I'm happy to address those.
Chief, could you just quick give us your total employees there, total firemen?
Yes, so we have 151 sworn personnel.
And how does that compare over the last 3 years?
That's in the last budget year, we did increase one member on the rescue company. The rescue company, we only have one. It runs out of headquarters. That had an officer and 2 firefighters on it. Every other company in the city, the engines and the ladders, have an officer and 3 firefighters. So under the last administration, that company was filled out, and that got us to the 151 that we have now.
And how many do you average your retirements or leaving per year, just roughly?
It's again, like PD, it's kind of hard to say. We have, I would say we average, 3, maybe 3 a year.
3,
on
okay.
average. Some years we have none.
And the same question I asked the police chief: do you feel that you have your men, your fire people have all the equipment and the protection that they need in your budget this year?
Yes, I think as far as our protective equipment, hose, tools, tools of the trade, we're in good shape as far as keeping everything, up to where it needs to be.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions for the chief? I'm sorry, Jared, your hand's raised. I didn't see that.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to make note of one thing that will likely change in this budget.
Yes.
After we put out the original mayor's budget, since then we've been working with the chief because I think there was there were some anomalies, I think, between the transition from the previous chief to Chief McCabe. And so, we noticed that there was in the budget proposal from the mayor, there was a pretty hefty headcount increase. And so we had a conversation with the chief and worked everything out, reconciled everything, and determined that there were more positions there. So when you look at the line item detail that went out to you earlier for the mayor's budget, it contained those increases in staffing.
That's correct, Jared. I can actually,
that's going to come down. And
yes, I had noted that as well, and I can just go into a little bit of detail on that for the board members. So under fire training, account number 5110, you'll see another one of those big variances. It's, I think, 286.9%. As Jared had said, there was a proposal to put on 3 additional captains in the training division. And that was originally proposed under the last administration to occur with the realignment of the department's officers upon the completion of the renovation of Station 4. So at that time, when companies would shift in the city, we would also do a realignment of the officers, and those 3 training captains would be made. However, in talking to finance, we're not going to be breaking ground on Station 4 until this summer. So the station will not be completed in the next fiscal year. And so those 3 captains' positions were removed from this budget, which actually changes our bottom line quite a bit. So with the removal of those personnel, which are under the training account, it brings the training account increase down to 3.6%, and our total budget increase down to 5.6%. So that's actually where we would rest if the budget stays where it is right now at 5.6.
Right, and in terms of dollars, we're still finalizing things and also looking at if there's any impact on benefits, on the benefit side of things as a result of this. But at this point right now, we're looking at probably a reduction of about $674,000 to their budget as a result of this change.
Yes.
Thank you. That's very helpful, Chief. And Jared, based on that alone, I'd like to leave the fire budget in total as an open item so that we can come back and reconcile what the correct numbers are as we go through our deliberations.
Very good, Ed.
Thank you. Any other questions for the chief?
And I just have one follow-up for the chief. Just curious, with all the buildings that we're putting up, the new, like the old where the Y was, and all these new apartment buildings we're putting up, chief, does it pose any challenge to you, or is it just business as usual if anything happens in those properties? It seems we're building a lot of them in town, so.
It's a great question, Troy, and we have had to make some modifications as to how we do things. For instance, with our fire apparatus, we've had to move to a more maneuverable type of ladder truck with 100-foot reach on the ladder so that we can get into some of these smaller driveways with setbacks and some of these larger complexes. So those are some physical changes that we've had to make to our equipment. Our standpipe kits that we would use if we had a fire in one of the higher floors of say a waypoint or one of these buildings. We've had to go to larger diameter hose because they would be longer stretches. So we've been trying to keep up with the necessary changes there. I would say that where those types of buildings stress us more is just in sheer call volume. Because the more people that you have in a building, the more EMS calls you're going to have, the more gas calls you're going to have, odors of smoke, fires on the stove, that type of thing. So we, like the police, we've also seen our call volume shoot up quite a bit, say in the last 5 years.
Thank you for
Chief,
that.
yeah. Chief, also,
Yes.
I guess during the construction phase, it's keeping your inspectors real busy too, right?
It's keeping our inspection
Yeah.
division very busy. Yeah, as far as keeping up with code, making sure that everything's being built to spec. They do a very good job with that, but they're there quite a bit, and making sure that these buildings are built to necessary code and in constant communication with those construction companies and those builders.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, any final questions for the chief? Chief, thank you to all of the department heads. Again, thank you. We'll coordinate through Jared with our request back to you and with Tom. But I want to thank all of you for again, the effort, the energy you put into this, your knowledge of your budgets, your willingness to talk through sometimes odd questions, but it's all very helpful as we try and figure out the best way to spend the money on behalf of the taxpayers of the city of Norwalk. So thank you all very much. With that, I don't know, Jared, Madam Mayor, if you have any other closing remarks before I ask for a motion to adjourn.
Go ahead, Jared. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just ask a question, maybe a clarifying question, because I know the directive was, the recommendation was to find 10% savings, and I wanted to get a sense from you about, are there areas of the budget that are off limits? Would a reduction in our contribution to the pension fund be something that that would be open? Would you are you looking for staffing reductions? I'm just trying to get a sense of where, because We have about, on the city side, we have about $82 million in salaries. So of our entire ask, a big portion of that is salaries. And then we go to the other fixed costs like debt service, um, benefits, fringe benefits for employees, and other fixed costs like that really are gonna really limit us, and we have to, if we don't touch those accounts, then they're gonna have to hit pretty dramatically other parts of the budget. And, you know, also in there, what I would include in the fixed costs are the different contracts that we have with vendors that, you know, that we have a legal obligation that and are under contract to pay.
Yeah, that's a fair question. So my response on behalf of the board would be, again, our ask is at the department level to produce a budget that is 10% at the departmental level with the issues and risks that that presents. If there are other creative solutions that you can bring forward that do not put at risk our AAA rating, we are more than willing to consider any and all other creative ideas. Artie.
I remember a couple of years ago, we ran into kind of the same situation on the Board of Ed with healthcare costs, and we self-insured. Is that an option to help us save with that cost?
So we're actually looking into different options for healthcare savings. It's not something that would, whether it's switching to self-insured or going to a high deductible plan, which when you talk to the CFO for the schools, is not working out great for them. They're experiencing very high, even higher than a more traditional HMO plan. They're experiencing very high increases in their high deductible plan. And so that's not working out great. We're exploring these things, but it's just the market is forever always changing. And so it's really difficult to, at a time when they switched over to the high deductible plan, it seemed like a no-brainer. But you know, the shifts in the market just, it's very, very difficult to predict those things. On the self-insurance side, my understanding is 5 years ago or so that we went away from self-insurance, I believe. You know, so we can explore it. I think what that's gonna do is gonna cause us to further increase the internal service fund, because we would need to have the funding there to be able to pay for any kinds of fluctuations that we encounter in the healthcare, on the healthcare side of things. So I think in the short term, it would cost us more money. In the long term, we can look into it. We can look into it.
If I can just add to, Artie, I've been through this insurance business, for many years too, as a teacher and, watching this on the Common Council, and just experience wise, I think, that Connecticut partnership plan has stayed really solid for the city of Norwalk. These increases that we're experiencing this year are, again, these are, it's national increases. We're not the only ones dealing with this. So, but just in terms of, the Cigna plan that the Board of Ed has right now for just the teachers, I mean, it's just shot up incredibly. It's over 18%. So there is a lot of risk there, but just experience-wise, the Connecticut Partnership Plan has stayed solid.
Ms. Yang.
I just have a couple of global comments. So while the discussion is 10%, a comment that I made when we had the original budget discussion is an intense need to look at the revenue side. I do believe that there is significant more, that we can find significant revenue in really working through the grand list. That's number one. Number two, relative to the budget, when we did the phase-in, and this is the first time I'd seen it on the board, we actually set forth a budget for the next 4 years. So in all of the negotiations that happened with the contracts and wherever we ended up, it should have been no surprise that we should have been working still towards a 4% budget increase. So there should not have been that much of a surprise. Plus, the increases that you're seeing are relatively controllable. They were created. This wasn't as if we had a hurricane come through the city of Norwalk and we have had a whole series of emergency spending. So if we are in a crisis, it's a crisis a bit of our own making. And so, because we've looked at 3 to 4% budget increases ever since the beginning of the phase-in, and that should have been in everybody's mind along every year of budgeting: is, are we going to be able to meet the 3 to 4%? So that should not have been a surprise. But I do think that there are some elegant ways that help by looking at the top line. And that's all I have to say.
Yeah, we're happy to work with you on that, especially if you have some specific suggestions on the grand list. We are, and we don't have to do it right now, but if there are things that you want to discuss and ways that we can.
I would recommend, I would highly recommend that an independent committee be formed, which includes a variety of the different departments of the city of Norwalk, plus people from the Common Council, from the finance group, from the BET, a number of people, and then outsiders who are valuation experts. And I'm sure that we would be able to get a lot of volunteers that don't have to be paid that would be willing to go through it. I do not think it is a difficult exercise to start from the very high, where, because you probably are still in sort of a 80-20 type rule situation of looking at the real estate. So just for example, I looked up Phyllis Street. It's 127 Phyllis Street. It's 1.56 acres. It's a very nice lot. I've walked through it. And we've owned it since 2014. If this is sold for, and it was, the last market clearing price for it was $580,000 in 2008. So you got to think 20 years later that it's probably worth about $1 million at least. Okay, so we sell it for $1 million. We get $1 million. You reduce the debt by $1 million. That's $40,000. Plus, then you put $1 million of property back onto the rolls, and that's $25,000. So just by the sale of that property alone, you're talking about a savings of $60,000 a year. And if that can be sold in 6 months' time, I think the city should do it as quickly as possible.
May I?
Look, we've made suggestions.
I'm just giving you an example. Jared asked me for an example. I gave him.
No, I
And
know.
I agree. Ms. Yang, and that is something that, I've been talking to our law department about. I do feel strongly we need to move on that. So Mario did lay out a few challenges. to that particular property, but I definitely have instructed the law department to get on it. So, he did lay that out. That's like a 6 to 12 month process. I think that we have to continue going in and looking to what we can to continue working together to address these issues. I mean, I do want to say, I agree with you also, Anne, and that some of this is of our own making. The 14% increase to the health insurance, though, I do think is a surprise for all of us. I don't think 3 years ago when we laid out the 4-year phase in that anybody thought that healthcare would jump so high this year. Had we appropriately funded that internal service fund, it would have helped us. So that's a part where I agree is of our own making. And so I think that, Jared's approach here, which I agree with, is to, start working on funding that appropriately again. But we'll continue working on this. And I think that, I want to take a few moments here to thank Jared and Tom and Kim and all of the finance staff for the incredible work that you've been doing. It's been my great honor and pleasure over these 2 months working with you. Your focus and your care. I've just been really impressed with that. So I want to thank you all, and of course, thank the departments. And I think we hear it, right? Everyone who comes here with, the very best that they can, working together. So, it's a tough one, but we just have to continue this discussion and working together and do everything we can to help our taxpayers.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Madam Mayor. And that again, that's part of the point of the challenge we put forward is just to continue to explore all options as aggressively as we can. We're not going to commit to anything tonight, tomorrow, over the next week, but we've got to be prepared to look at all the various options and make the right decisions together that benefit the city. And that's the purpose of putting that challenge forward to the departments. Okay. With that, is there anything else anyone would like to raise? Because if not, I would love a motion to adjourn.
Yeah, just real quick, Ed. For tomorrow night, Board of Education is first, and then Economic and Community Development, which is Planning and Zoning and Code Enforcement and PMP and Arts Commission and Historical Commission. So
yeah,
I would plan on probably at least an hour for Board of Education first, and then maybe an hour for the balance.
Yeah, and Tom, BET, Madam Mayor, while we've been sitting here tonight, it looks like I have had a business meeting come on my calendar for 7 p.m. tomorrow evening. So I may end up kicking tomorrow off with you, but then listening to the recording afterwards. I'll confirm everything in the morning.
Tom and Jared, are documents for tomorrow's meeting going to be shared in advance?
Yeah, Joe, good point. You are in the BET mail group. Have you been getting any of the documents I've been sending out?
No.
Okay, then it's something other than that JDA, whatever at gmail.com. So I will send it individually to the JDA one. The screen share documents that I showed this evening. I think other BET members can confirm that you received those, right?
Yes. Yes,
okay.
we received those, and
I will send those individually to you, Joe, to make sure that you have those until you get your BET norwalkct.gov email extension up and running. So I'll make sure you have that for tomorrow night. Sorry about that.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Anything else?
Motion to adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn.
Second
We
it.
are adjourned. Thank you all very
Good night,
much. We'll see
everyone.
you
Thanks,
tomorrow.
Ed. Thanks, Mayor.
All right.
Bye.